Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Bro, we running out of real estate in the NBA regular season, and we got March Madness cooking up. Basketball is in its element at the moment.
This is prime basketball season. We're almost into the Sweet 16 pretty soon for college hoops, and then right after March Madness, as you already know, play-in talk, playoff talk. This is where the NBA shines, and you're gonna be following along with us through the Hit Your Free Throws podcast all the way through. But first, before we even get there, we have a banger episode for you guys today because we're doing all rookie teams, all NBA teams. None of this other shenanigans we've been doing the last few weeks. None of these really specific type of NBA teams. We're going the true all NBA teams, first, second, and third. It's gonna be a great episode. So yeah, it's gonna be. You can strap in because we're gonna be going through a lot in this one, especially because we have another topic beforehand. But yeah, it's gonna be a great episode, and there's gonna be a lot to go through today. But before we go into that, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow both of our personal accounts at TV on Basketball, at the Routine Jumper. Those links will be found down below. If you're in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, make sure to follow us for daily content on the TikTok and Instagrams. I've been posting the vlogs. I went to my 13th Raptor game recently, so if you want to go check that out, the game versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, that video is up now too. And then if you want to follow along with this podcast on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just show your support in any way possible. Review, subscribe. We appreciate all of your support. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let's get into it. And we're going to start off with a topic that was not on the dock, but last night, some big things happened in the NBA regarding a betting scandal around, I can't believe I'm saying this, around Jontay Porter. Yes, Jontay Porter of my Toronto Raptors got into a betting scandal after he was found on two separate occasions on January 26th and March 26th, where there was a substantial amount of Jontay Porter bets on a bunch of unders in a game where he played 4 minutes in each of these games, and everything was hit the under. Then he came out with some crazy injury out of nowhere. So the NBA is now starting an investigation over potential betting allegations against Jontay Porter. Jay, this feels like the first time this has happened in like an NBA type of circle. I know Calvin Ridley had something similar to this in the NFL just a few years back, but this feels like the first time it's happening in NBA circles. How do you feel about this scandal?
I feel like it's a whole lot of stupid, bro. I feel like we're having ourselves another Tristan Thompson situation of just another guy at the end of the bench with way too much money and way too much time to be able to just move stupid. Tristan Thompson got caught for PEDs and was out for 25 games as a dude who was averaging like 2.5 points per game and barely getting any tick for the Cleveland Cavaliers off the bench. Here's Jontay Porter, who you should have actually been able to maximize a little bit more opportunity with the fact that Toronto Raptors have been relatively injured as of late, and more so the fact that I think that they're playing to potentially still keep their pick for this year. And here you are squandering your opportunity and possibly risking the rest of your career, one that may not have been that to begin with, but could have been, still like financially, worthy of keeping, obviously, right? You're an NBA player. Like the mere fact that you're even on a roster brings a lot of positivity in terms of your, financial upbringing and stuff like that moving forward, whatever. I think if you want to just look at it from a sports gambling standpoint, TV, the other reason why I think it's a whole lot of nothing is because I literally don't think this is going to apply to many, if not any other, players. We talked about it off camera. High tier players, we don't think this is going to be a problem. The lower you go down the totem pole, I think you might potentially see the want to in terms of certain players feeling a little frisky. But I think whatever punishment they decide to lay down for this one is going to be very important in deterring more future offenders. I think they're gonna. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they're gonna go the whole way. Calvin Ridley, like you mentioned beforehand, he got a year. I think they're just gonna nix Jontay. Calvin Ridley was
Yeah.
still a very recent first round draft pick that just he was riddled by, no pun intended, but he was like riddled by injury and stuff like that in his early stages with Atlanta, Jacksonville, that kind of thing like that. But he was still, if you're a former first round pick, we know how these things go. Like,
Yeah.
there tends to be a thing where people not necessarily look over it, but you tend to get more chances.
Yeah.
Jontay, on the other hand, I think he's gonna be utilized as a martyr, man. Not to say that
Yeah.
they should be allowing players to bet on themselves, but they're going to use Jontay Porter as the sacrificial lamb to let the rest of the league know, like, yo, this ain't cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important part of this whole situation is how the NBA, if they find him guilty, I mean, all sides point to it. We mentioned even off the pod. I mean, like, people have found out that this guy has his own like Twitter financial account. This guy's been on podcasts talking about crypto and all that. He's had these like Discord trade channels. So it's not looking good for Jontay right now. Let's be honest. So it's really important for the NBA to do this. So because like you mentioned, at the top end, they're treated nicely. They are very well covered. It's the bottom end of the bench people. Because Jontay Porter is on like a two-way contract. And I had to look up, how much are you getting on a two-way contract? Still must be good enough money. I mean, he's getting $400K. He's getting like $400K this year, which, again, to us, like normal folk, that seems like a lot. But in the NBA grand scheme of things, you're not like millionaire status. And if you're Jontay Porter and you see this opportunity to find a way to like bet on yourself and like knowing stuff, especially like from your situation, knowing like your playing time, your injuries and all that, him being able to take advantage of this, I feel like if not handled correctly by the NBA, could open the worms for like a few guys here and there, especially in this new age of betting and like sports where it's like promoted every other commercial. I think it's gonna become a bit more prevalent. And like I mentioned, if they don't handle this the right way, then it could lead to more people. Maybe not right now, but maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, where people who have been betting for years now, who understand kind of the ins and outs, can maybe fall into a situation like a Jontay Porter. So it's really important here. But I guess like the in general, I'm just gonna throw it back to you here just really quick. Do you think the NBA's like kind of, well, how I would say it, promotion of gambling and like just like everywhere on the court, every other commercial, is like contributing to the fact that like a lot more players like might see this as a viable route, especially like with all their partnerships and everything with gambling, with these gambling sites?
I mean, it's going to be something that they're going to have conversations about to make sure that that kind of stuff is being regulated. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this whole thing reported just based off the mere fact that DraftKings, for those two games in question, DraftKings reported that they were two of the biggest payouts, if not, like, I think they were like the biggest payout of the day, right? So on each occasion. So I mean, yeah, definitely not the very sloppy work, obviously, considering the fact that I think there was like even reporting that said normal, like, normal betting size, especially even for something as simplistic as this, is like maybe 1,000 to 2,000, and he was in like the 10,000 to 20,000 range. Just a lot of like sloppy work overall. But I think, again, this is part of the reason why it's gonna be a lot more feasible to like hit the hammer on this one early on, because this is one of those where a lot of things were done incorrectly, and just the mere fact of being able to nip it in the bud early on, I don't think that people are going to look to try to find savvier ways to get around it. Obviously, speaking with the sports betting companies is going to be important, but I feel like it just goes to show you it's not the cleanest job to even try to do this. So I mean, in general, I don't know. I don't see the benefit long term. That's just, I guess that's me.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's something they'll definitely look into, and I think the NBA will now, like, again, use Jontay Porter as like a martyr and say, you know what, we're not even gonna have this guy in the league. We do not condone this at all, to kind of deter away future opportunities of this happening. But it's just like it's like a situation that the fact that this happened twice already, like twice, like for him, like maybe like that'll like they'll find other stuff with other players who did it like once or something. So yeah, it's definitely something interesting and it's something to follow along, and see what the NBA ends up doing. But yeah, for the Raptors already like messed up season, the fact that we're nearing the end and we have another scandal going around one of our players is just absolutely perfect. So yeah, let us know down below what you guys think about this whole Jontay Porter situation and him betting on the unders of everything from his game. So let us know what you think down below. Moving on to the next topic, we're gonna be going into legitimate NBA awards pretty soon, which is next week. But we're gonna be going through some of the end of season, review type of stuff, and we're gonna be starting off here with the all rookie teams. Now, as you know, with like all rookie teams and all NBA teams, they've nipped positions altogether. There's no positions in this at all. Who is that all rookie doesn't have the 65 game moniker? It just really depends on the voting. It doesn't matter um, how many games you played, but if people think that you deserve to make it, you'll make it in. But there's two teams: first team, second team. Jay, how hard did you think it was making these teams?
So for the rookies teams, it wasn't nearly as bad. Definitely wasn't nearly as bad at all. But for the actual All NBA team, it got a lot more difficult when considering the fact that these teams no longer positions, so you have much more range, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. And again, what does with the All NBA teams compared to the All Rookie teams, Jake? You gotta keep into account. Are these guys gonna make the 65 game moniker? Are they gonna like be able to reach that? Or do you think someone's gonna maybe miss out? That's why you leave them off your list. Who knows? But we're gonna get into that very shortly. But we're gonna start with the All Rookie teams. And Jay, I'm just gonna tell you my All Rookie first team in general, then we're gonna compare it to your team. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's get into this. So for my All Rookie first team, I got Wembanyama, shocker. Chet Holmgren, shocker. Brandon Miller, Jaime Jaquez, and Derek Lively.
Yep.
How do you go over on your side?
Pretty much match you like in the exact order you just said it. So
Really? All right.
yeah.
Was there like, I mean, what were kind of the easiest ones for you to choose, and then what was kind of the one that's kind of like maybe like bordering on like maybe second team?
Victor Chet, easy. Brandon Miller, I think in the beginning of the year, a lot of people kind of jumped on him early for him not having nearly as much, production, especially, summer league wasn't as intense for him, or wasn't as intentional. There were a couple spark plugs here and there, but I think a lot of people weren't necessarily moved by his summer league performance. The early stages of the season, kind of slow build, this team has played on and off without LaMelo Ball, different things of that nature, but he's been able to really catch stride. Derek Lively maybe probably was the hardest one. His overall productivity is solid, but of course, especially when you look at the Dallas Mavericks, what they did at the trade deadline, they purposely brought in more big man help. You know what I mean? Getting Daniel Gafford, bringing in PJ Washington, like as other assistant. Now, of course, we joked on the podcast that there are a different set of big men that they were looking
Yeah.
to essentially replace in
Yeah.
the process. But nonetheless, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford do a lot of the same things. So, of course, that was one of those things to maybe worry about. But the overall productivity of Derek Lively as of late specifically, too, I think he's like the last couple of games, he's scored double digits for a little mini hot streak. I think it's like 5 games in a row of at least 10 points or something along those lines. He's been playing relatively well, and the defensive upside, all those things. And I guess lastly with Jaime Jaquez, I don't have a lot to say about Jaime. He's just been really consistent. He's one of the players that's like played the most amongst the rookie class. He's one of the players that's been the most reliable for a team that's looking to make a push for the postseason. I would say outside of this group, obviously, I think it would be Chet, then Jaime, then Derek Lively, because obviously Brandon Miller and Victor are not in the mix. So, but even across both teams, I think Chet and Jaime Jaquez might be the most important players as rookies to their teams looking to make postseason pushes out of anybody in this 10-man group we're going to have.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, to be honest, like the first four that we mentioned, Wemby, Chet, Brandon Miller, and Jaime were the true locks for all rookie first team, mostly because like they've just been like very good to very consistent to very good all year round. I mean, Wemby, you don't have to talk about him. Chet, we know that they've been in the rookie of the year battle all year. Brandon Miller, I mean, 17 points a game on 38% from three, 43% from the field. Give the man the ball more. Charlotte, you're doing nothing anyway. Might as well just help with his development. He's already having a great year, and Jaime has just been a really solid role player there for Miami throughout the entire season, even having some big games in there. Mainly Christmas, by the way. I remember in Christmas he had a 30-something point performance. So shout out to Jaime. Derek Lively, I think, really benefited from the fact that he came out the gate swinging. If you remember the beginning of the season, he was people were like, oh my gosh, the Mavericks were longing for big man help forever, and they finally got it in Derek Lively. They don't have to deal with the Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber center rotation anymore, and they even addressed that more with the Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington thing. But he's just so important to that team, and he's not really fallen out of his role. He's maintained his role basically the entire season, and when you see 8 points and 7 rebounds on a very good Dallas Mavericks team, and he's an important part of it, he's definitely got to get shown some love as well.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, the rookie class has been really productive in their own little way. Not as many players that have been able to contribute to championship caliber teams or anything like that. I mean, like I said, maybe Chet is the only one individually, and Derek Lively to a lesser extent. We'll see where the Miami Heat land, but nonetheless, I mean, it's a good group. You can definitely say that maybe not a ton of all-stars are going to come out of this group, but you can definitely say that a lot of players that are going to have 7 to 10 plus year careers have real opportunity here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think all rookie team, again, probably easy for both of us. We have the exact same 5. Moving on to the rookie team, the all-rookie second team. Now, I think we're going to have few similarities here, but there might be one or two that we might, maybe disagree on. So I'm going to go with my all-rookie team first, and we'll go through Jay's after all-rookie second team. Mm-hmm. For myself, I put Keontae George, Brandon Podziemski, Jordan Hawkins, Asar Thompson, and I ended up putting Scoot Henderson in there. Have Scoot Henderson in my last spot.
Interesting. Okay, so we definitely have a pretty decent break off after the first 2. Because my 5 is Brandon Podziemski, Keontae George, Amen Thompson, Cason Wallace, and Gigi Jackson.
Okay. All right. I mean, let's quickly, I guess, talk about the first 2. Keontae George, finally getting his starting role near the end of the year here. And he's actually been really solid there for the Utah Jazz. So maybe I don't know if he fixes their point guard problem, but he's definitely someone to keep there long term. If you remember before the season, I made a bold claim that he might be in Rookie of the Year races if given the opportunity. He's not, but he's had a really solid season. So shout out to Keontae George and Brandon Podziemski, kind of like Jaime Hawkins of the West in the sense where it's an older rookie, someone who's on a team with. I mean, sure, they're the 10th seed right now, but they have playoff aspirations, and he's been just a really solid player, whether as a starter, whether coming off the bench. He's just been very productive the entire year, so shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Keontae, like you mentioned beforehand, I don't necessarily know if he solves their point guard problem, but he's had a little bit of a roller coaster year, but the production has been there in spurts enough to give you the belief that they're going to be really solid once he kind of gets to put it together. If you remember in the early stages of the year, he was having a real turnover problem, and that was one of the biggest things that was hurting his overall productivity. And we also have to remember with the Utah Jazz, they're a tale of multiple teams as well, right? They're a team that was, very interesting at the beginning, got a little wonky towards the middle. Will Hardy started to really get an understanding of his lineup closer to the trade deadline. They go to the trade deadline, blow the thing up basically by taking all if outside of Lauri Markkanen in terms of the starting lineup. I think basically everybody in that sense got moved, or not necessarily, I won't say everybody in terms of the starting lineup, but significant contributors as a part of what became a newly established Utah roster got moved right as they were kind of starting to catch real stride. So Keontae George had to kind of maneuver through that, and now it's kind of come out on the other side. And then Podziemski, I mean, obviously, I think if anybody ends up giving him credit for anything, it's more than likely just going to be the narrative / storyline of him usurping Klay Thompson in the starting lineup, which does take real skill and real productivity to be trusted that way, especially with a Golden State Warriors team that's been playing with kid gloves when it comes to players like Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga. For him to be able to come out the gate and be able to establish that for himself was huge. Other than that, I wouldn't say the productivity from him has been anything insane, but you can definitely see that like his contributions have helped the Golden State Warriors in a real way, which is not common for like rookies.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we'll just go with the ones that we like have. Like, I guess I'll make like a quick case for each of my guys that like we have that we differ a little bit with. Um, Starting off with like Jordan Hawkins, one of the best 3-point shooters like coming out of the draft, and like me and you have joked about it. If you're the Orlando Magic or the Toronto Raptors and you see like the production that Jordan Hawkins is giving to the New Orleans Pelicans, you got to be kicking yourselves because he's been absolutely great coming off the bench for them. 37% from three, again, not the best, but also he's just able to shoot them, and he has a really good stroke on him, averaging 8.5 points per game, and just been like a solid part of the rotation the entire year. I think that he's gonna be just like one of those guys where he can end games for you. He can start, like he could sometimes come in as a starter on certain games, and I think he's just gonna be productive. And no matter what his role is, he doesn't really need the ball in his hands to be great. I think Jordan Hawkins is gonna be like a staple in terms of the Pelicans rotation for a long time. I got to start Thompson. I know he's kind of like trailed off at the end here, but one of the lone bright spots for the Detroit Pistons this year, alongside Jane Ivey, Kate Cunningham. I think he's going to be just a perfect Swiss Army knife. Again, one of those Swiss Army knives that don't have a jump shot, but I think that he's going to maneuver away from that. Sadly, I think, was he injured because he has like blood, like he has to deal with blood clots right now?
Yeah, blood clot in his lower leg, I believe, or something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah, so prayers up to him. Hopefully that thing gets sorted. But he had a really good start to the year. I mean, he was like top 3 in rookie, like in the rookie of the year ladder. Kind of fell off, but he was still, solid all year round, especially when he was in the rotation. And then Scoot Henderson. Look, he's had a really rough start to the season, and it's not like it's gotten like so much better. He's averaging like 38% from the field, on 12 shots per game. On like he had like 12 points, like he's averaging like 13 points a game. I think he's starting to finally get it, even though he's not like consistently starting as like we were hoping for. Maybe hasn't been like a world beater right away, but he still has had a solid season. And he has to do a lot of he had to do a lot of growing, especially with the early season struggles. And I think he's improved steadily throughout the season with the more reps he has. And I still believe in him going forward in terms of his production being a part of the long term future for the Trailblazers. Jay, if you want to talk about some of your guys, you can go ahead.
I mean, definitely nothing too in depth. Amen Thompson has more so been his ability to put together a strong second half to the season after having a really slow start. Obviously, this is a guy that was dealing with injury to kick off the year. Remember, he had to kind of play down in the G League to kind of start things off, just to ramp up. He's slowly but surely kind of been able to play himself into a strong part of the rotation for a Houston Rockets team that's making a real push to still try to make the play-in tournament. They've been on fire as of the last 7 to 8 games, and they've really been able to put things together despite the fact that, I mean, many of us, including myself, thought that once Alperen Sengun went down, it was going to be a real hit to their ego in terms of what they were going to be able to do long term in this push for the postseason. Here they are now, right there neck and neck with the Golden State Warriors. Okay, sure, I understand that a lot of people are giving Jalen Green a lot of credit for that. I know that a lot of people will probably look back at the last podcast and say, Jay, wasn't that one of your most disappointing players? Of course, I look at that one and I say, I'm not going to necessarily say I was wrong. There's also a lot of people that are evoking the trade that was proposal that was made by the Brooklyn Nets, right, to send Mikal Bridges and the Houston Rockets picks back in exchange for Jalen Green, right, and some future draft capital. That was back when he was playing ass, right? Yeah. So let's not do revisionist history in a sense where it was like, dang, the Brooklyn Nets missed out on a great opportunity. No, the Brooklyn Nets saw Jalen Green as a guy who, for this Houston Rockets team, seemed easily expendable, which is not typically something associated with a former top 3 overall pick, right? And now Jalen Green's thriving in an environment where Alperen Sengun is not on the floor. So the Houston Rockets still have a problem in a sense because now they've identified that Jalen Green can be an elite level 2 guard, at least as a scoring threat, but he can't do it next to the team's assumed best player. So Houston still has a problem. Don't get it twisted. But that's not important. What is important is when we talk about, like, in terms of this conversation, at least, what is important in terms of this conversation is Amen Thompson, I think, has been able to really carve out a real role for himself in Houston. Love that for himself. Cason Wallace, I have bias towards him. I also have bias just in general when it comes to the Oklahoma City Thunder in terms of those guys and their individual development. Cason Wallace can play in any lineup that the Oklahoma City Thunder have been able to throw out. He can start as the point guard. He can start as the two guard next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He can be a primary on-ball defender next to Shai or Josh Giddey on the outside. He just gives them a lot of look, right? And between him and just like the litany of three-point shooting and spacing that they've been able to get from this overall rotation, Cason Wallace has been able to step in and be a 3-and-D guard out the gate and just do what he is supposed to do. And it has been he's been a real connector for this team, A, and B, he's been a person who's really been able to help uplift this team, because although he's not more important than a Shai, than a Jalen Williams, than a Chet Holmgren, right? He's not more important than those guys. But I think him playing within his individual role and stepping in and thriving in it has really helped the Oklahoma City Thunder take that last step. And then Gigi Jackson, I'm not going to lie, when he come to Rookie of the Year, it was one of those things where I it was a toss-up. I mean, sure, I love Scoot Henderson still as a prospect. I love him more as a prospect than Gigi Jackson, despite the fact that I like Gigi's tools. Gigi's also a top 5 scorer amongst the rookie class. Now, you could say that's due to situation, but most of the rookies is going to come down to if they're leading their team in scoring or if they're one of the better scorers on their team. It's due to situation. So in this case, I'm kind of just playing into what typical rookie, all rookie teams look like. Now, almost the what's it called? The 6 man of the year, framework of just who is able to put up points in a hurry, so on and so forth. Gigi Jackson, again, we mentioned it last podcast when we were talking about interesting players and stuff like that. He's just one of those guys that I think has been able to make the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, no, he was one of the guys definitely on the short list for me, going into this. There's a lot of guys we didn't mention here too, like Cam Whitmore. Shout out to people like Marcus Sasser, Bilal Coulibaly, just some guys who kind of left off our list. My thing was he kind of just didn't play enough, even though it's not a games played thing. I feel like playing 38 games. I wish he had played more this year to kind of solidify his case, but that's why I left him off. But if you go with him, I 100% agree. He definitely deserves to be have some sort of consideration here. But definitely some good lists. You're not gonna see much resistance from me. I mean, it's all rookie second team. Let's be honest. It's not the biggest thing in the world. So yeah, those are all rookie first and second teams. Let us know down below if you agree, disagree. If there's some guys we haven't mentioned as well. Also, I don't know if you will get this risk, but there's a guy named Duop Reith who's been pretty solid. He's from the Trailblazers. I haven't seen much of him. Was he kind of in consideration for yours as well? I was just looking at it and I'm he's been pretty solid.
I mean, not necessarily, but I mean, you can make an argument that from a rookie class perspective, the Portland Trailblazers actually have gotten a lot of productivity from their rookie group, because Toumani Camara is another guy that I at least did give a real look at, because there was a point where you did have to wonder if Camara was looking like a better prospect than Scoot Henderson for a short period of time. Now, granted, that probably had to do more with Scoot's absence, but of course the defensive upside of Camara and the background of him just being a throwaway part of the Damian Lillard trade obviously was one of those things that he comes out and produces in the way that he's been able to. You sometimes wonder, I mean, I don't want to say aggressively, but you wonder if Toumani Camara could be effective if he were a member of the Milwaukee, but if he stayed as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks as a defensive stopper type for that team. What that would have looked like and things of that nature. You don't go too deep into it, but it's something that would be interesting looking back at it. But Portland's in a good spot, man. Now, of course, they have a real Anthony Simons question moving forward, and they still have some very, very large contracts for a very, very bad team. So they just have to kind of they need to work on some of the math for their team. For sure. But I liked him. In general. But Duop Reith, no, I wouldn't say he was it wasn't in any kind of real consideration for me. That's somebody I think I would just have to start doing tape on before I could really put any perspective on that one.
Yeah, that just made me think, I might just have to watch this guy more to see how he is. But this rookie class for the Trailblazers looking really good so far.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next topic. We went through all rookies. Now let's have for the big boys, the all NBA teams. Again, this is kind of tough because the new rule is you have to play 65 games. Sure, there's no more positions, which we've been clamoring for years. And they got rid of positions, but now they have the 65 game requirement, so that kind of limits our list as well. Jay said it was a little bit more difficult for here. Him, it was kind of difficult for me, especially when you start going down to our NBA second and third team. But Jay, let's go into first team because I don't expect us to have like many differences on the All NBA first team, if not any differences whatsoever. So I'm just gonna go through our list. Just tell me after each player if you got them or not. Let's
Okay.
just go through this quickly. Nikola Jokic,
Yep.
Luka Doncic,
Yep.
SGA,
Yep.
Giannis,
Yep.
Tatum.
Yep.
There we go. We're gonna talk about MVP next week, but I guess like this had to be the choice, right? This felt like it's like top 5 MVPs. They have to make up the All NBA first team.
Pretty much that was like the easy way to put together the initial team. First team was the easiest because of the fact that it's just like, look at your MVP ballot. Those are definitely the guys that need to be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, like the only one who you can maybe make like an argument off of that list is Jason Tatum, but at the same time, best player on clearly the best team in basketball. The Boston Celtics, I know they lost by 30 last night. That was tough for them, but still, clearly the best team in the league record wise. He's putting up like monster stats, just no one really talks about as much. And you compare it up with the top 4 MVP candidates. I felt like this was a no brainer.
I agree. This was the easiest group, and it probably wasn't even close if I'm keeping it a bean with you. So it just really this was the breeze by group.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, we don't have like much other analysis. I mean, we've been talking about these guys all year. Let's be honest. SGA.
That too.
Yeah, we've been talking about these guys like all year. Nikola Jokic, we know how great he's been. Giannis, we know how important he's been to the Bucks. SGA, we can't get enough of him here on the Hit Your Free Throws pod. Then you also have Luka Doncic here. Insane number. So the first team, pretty easy. All right, let's go through the second team though. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult. I'm gonna say my team as well, and then you can say yours. I got Jalen Brunson, Kevin Durant.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah.
Wait, do we have to hold the same second team?
Yeah, we literally have the exact same team. And mind you, the reason for that though is because of originally, clarification here. Originally, Donovan Mitchell was here, and then I realized how far away he is from the game requirement.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to nix him. Yeah, he's at 49 games played. Even if he plays every game of the remainder part of the season, which is only 10 games left for the Cavs, he would still cap out at 59. So that was a player that I originally kind of had here in this group just from productivity standpoint. But without the games played factor, we literally have because Jalen Brunson is the first guard up on what was my initial third team. Yeah. So he just got moved up. So I can read the order to you same way. My order specifically was Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Domantas Sabonis in that order.
Yeah. And look, we're not even doing this by position. This is just the way like we think how it should.
Yeah, exactly. No, of course.
This is just the way it should go. But let's talk about some of the picks. I mean, y'all shout outs to like Domantas Sabonis, man. He has been a topic of conversation. He just broke the post-merger record for most consecutive double-doubles. The fact that this man was not all-star is an absolute crime, and now he's on both of our teams' All-NBA second team.
Yeah, I gotta keep it a beat with you, TV. We said it back then, bro, that like it just felt kind of like malpractice that like neither one of the Kings made the All-Star team.
Ridiculous.
It back then it seemed a little odd. I think it's because a lot of people came into the season still kind of wondering about where they stood on the Kings' previous season.
Yeah.
And of course, the Kings have not been nearly as good because one of the, shocker here, they haven't been nearly as healthy as they were last year. Yeah. Which obviously did play heavily into the fact that they were able to be one of the better regular season teams. Also, let's make sure we understand that NBA offenses have been able to catch up to what the Sacramento Kings were able to do last year. So what they were able to do last year as a dynamic offense, they're doing a lot of the same things. It's just that their ranking in terms of being one of the better offenses is not nearly as high when the rest of the league has, or a good majority of the league has been able to kind of step up their game, so to say, in that department as well, right? Yeah. So the fact that the Kings never had an all-star in that group to begin with was already insane. Domantas Sabonis will be he'll be on my all NBA ballot if I had one. Like, I mean, he's been legitimate all year. The Kings have been able to stay afloat the entire season. And while everybody's scrambling, trying to figure out which one of the LA teams is going to be stuck at home,
right?
The Kings are the only team that, like, I wouldn't say is sitting firm, but they're the team that is probably the most secure, considering that, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Clippers are still, in good spirits too, so to speak. They're dealing with a completely different problem, not necessarily in terms of making the postseason, but what they're going to look like in the playoffs if they're, if they're getting Russell Westbrook back, coming off injury, things of that nature. They got a different kind of problem. But in terms of just making the postseason, it's been the Clippers and the Kings all year. I know people are not used to that, right? It's usually the Lakers and the Warriors, and they're the two that are going to be duking it out for that final spot, it looks like, at the rate they're on.
I mean, the Rockets are right there. That's the only problem with that's the difference.
There you go. I'm about to say, and the Rockets part of it makes the Warriors element even more interesting, which we might get into in All-NBA third team. But, yeah, shout out Sabonis. So shout out Sabonis, man. I mean, he's coming off a triple-double game the other day, too, by the way. Very something slight. I think it was like 10, 11, and 12 or something along those lines, or 12, 11, and 10, something like that. But still, like, he's just been consistent all year. And I think sometimes we just, like, we don't appreciate when some people just are able to just do what they're good at.
Because he doesn't talk. This man doesn't talk. He plays in Sacramento. He doesn't talk, but he puts up numbers consistently. This is the best season of his career. And he's made all-star teams before. The fact he hasn't made it is still an absolute shock to me. Because not only is he leading the league in double-doubles, the longest record since the merger, he's leading the league in triple-doubles. 25 on the season. Not Jokic. Not Luka Doncic. It's Domantas Sabonis. People don't give him enough credit. And I think, like, keeping the Warriors, especially the Kings, in the top 6 seed, that like they've been like all season long, Sabonis definitely deserves more love. The fact he's going to be an All-NBA second team guy and not be an All-Star is an absolute crime. But yeah, he definitely deserves to be there. Speaking about the other guys, Jalen Brunson, what else can you say? I mean, he's been leading the Knicks all season long. Even without Julius Randle, they're still winning games. And it's mostly because of Jalen Brunson. He's had like numerous 40-point games. He's had a 50-point game this year. He just looked like an absolute, like a completely different monster this year. Legitimately, like a top 5 guard in the NBA this year. He has been that good. Anthony Edwards, what else can we say about him? The highlights are there. The production is there. Kind of like Jalen Brunson, they've had a significant injury to their starting 4 in Karl Anthony Towns. And the Timberwolves are still winning on the backs of course, Rudy Gobert's defense and Anthony Edwards, like amazing offensive productivity. He's just the true leader of this team, and he's keeping them afloat, still competing in that crazy top 3 in the Western Conference, where it feels like any one of them can like nab the number 1 seed at some point. And then finally, you got the other 2 guys, Kawhi and KD. We knew Kawhi is like all NBA. He's just been missing a lot of games the last couple of years, but he's finally like met that threshold, so he definitely deserves respect. And KD, man, I feel like even like his sort of season is going underrated because the Suns have been kind of disappointing over there as the number 18 in the West. But him this season, averaging 27.6, 7 rebounds, 5 assists on 50, 40, 85 on this team. 63% true shooting from a wing is crazy as well. Kevin Durant is like, even at this age, we talk about how great LeBron is playing at age 39. Kevin Durant's like 35, 36, and he's still like a top 10 player in this league. Shout out to KD, man. I guess that's just kind of like my little spiel on the rest of the guys I have on my list.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, NBA the all second team to me is like the you got what you signed up for group. Like whatever these players, you look at them and you say they excel at this thing or these things at a maximum level, you're getting that level of productivity. Yes. If you're looking at an all NBA caliber group, these guys all check the boxes. Are their teams in the playoffs? Yes. Are these players one of, if not the best player on their team? Yes. Are they one of the best scoring options or defensive options on their team? Yes. Right. Like if you go down the checklist in terms of like, it's different, right? When you talk about guys like SGA, Luka, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Nikola Jokic, they're in an echelon that's above I'm giving you all NBA productivity. There again, that's why they're in the MVP conversation, right?
Yeah.
But if we're talking about a standard all NBA team, right, that which is typically where 2 and 3 really are. That's where the standard all NBA team is decided. Those are the kind of boxes that I personally play with in terms of like what kind of options do you check, right? Top option on a good team. High level productivity, efficiency, performance in big games. Obviously, availability is now important with the 65 game threshold. If you cross these boxes off, that's typically what lands you on an All NBA squad. And these I would say this group right here is the best representation of what an All NBA team looks like if you're not a part of the MVP conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, like, I mean, maybe besides Kawhi Leonard, because he's had like maybe injury issues like throughout his entire career. But when you look at Anthony Edwards, when you look at Kevin Durant, when you look at Jalen Brunson, you look at them, you're like, man, these guys are just ballers. They don't like in terms of like playing through injury. We've seen even though KD has missed some years due to his Achilles injury, he's been willing to play through injuries. Anthony Edwards has talked about how he just wants to like be there on the court, even if he has a little knick-knack injuries here and there. He wants to be on the court. And Jalen Brunson, these guys are just absolute ballers, and they want to be on the court, and you know when they're on the court that they're going to be productive and they're going to be able to lead their team to a lot of wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, kind of surprised we have the exact same All NBA second team, but you know, these guys are definitely deserving. Now the All NBA third team. This one where it's like, I think we're gonna have like similar players, but if you go like a different route than what I've like thought here, then I think it could be very interesting. So again, we'll go through each and tell me if you have them or not, and then if there's any differences, we'll discuss them at the end. So first one, Steph Curry.
Yep.
Steph Curry.
Can I stop you real quick before you read the rest of your team? He was the late omission after I swapped Donovan Mitchell out and moved Jalen Brunson up to second. Ooh. That was the one. So that's actually the guy who would have been the first one off with my original list.
Interesting. Yeah. You know what? That actually could have been the case. There was someone else on this list that maybe I was like kind of on the fence about, but he just made it in for me. But Steph Curry, even though like it's not maybe his team's not having a best year, I still consider him an All NBA player this year. I have him.
Okay.
Devin Booker.
Yep.
Devin Booker. Okay. All right. Looking good so far. Anthony Davis.
No.
Okay. So this is good. This is good.
No.
LeBron James.
No.
Oh, okay. See, this is good. So I have LeBron and Anthony Davis. I have both Lakers in. And then last spot. I know he's been struggling lately, but I still got Reese. I still got Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay, that we both have. So we 3 out of 5. Ironically, the 2 Lakers guys are the ones we disagree on.
Okay, so you have Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker, and
Steph Curry.
So who are your other 2?
The other 2 that I have is Dame Lillard and Rudy Gobert.
Okay. For me, it sucks, but for me, the final spot came between Rudy Gobert, funnily enough, and Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton's slide kind of like maybe sway one way or another. Like
I get that.
Like I was really looking at Rudy Gobert and I'm like, I think I don't know how much hate it's gonna get, but it's gonna be like, do we put him in? I feel like we should, but I just put like Tyrese started the season was just too good to maybe put it over him. But what? So you have Rudy Gobert and who's the other one you said?
Dame Lillard is the other one.
Lillard. Okay, yeah, he was also on my list. But yeah, I guess let's start off by talking about the similarity ones. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, we both have Tyrese Halliburton. People forget this guy was averaging like in the beginning of the season 25 and like 12. I just like he was like one of the best players in basketball to start the season. Like we talked about earlier on, like borderline MVP discussions for Tyrese Halliburton.
At one point, me and you had him in our top 3 when we first started talking about MVP debates. So that goes to tell you there's a real fall from grace because I was looking at the most recent MVP ladder actually through the NBA.com, and Tyrese is in the next 5. So there's the first 5. He's in the other consideration. So there's the first 5, the next 5, and then there's the next 10. And he was in like the bottom 5 of that next group, which is a real change of heart compared to there was a point where like he was above SGA in this conversation at one point, which is insane to think about how things have changed.
Yeah, but yeah, even though like he's really fallen off, and again, has to do a lot with the injury. We understand that he had that injury and he kind of like messed with his rhythm like midway through the season. But I still think he's done like enough, especially leading up to the play-in final, that
Mhm.
he definitely deserves still an All NBA spot. Devin Booker started off the year injured, but I mean, I was just looking at his stats and I'm like, oh yeah, Devin Booker is still like arguably the best two guard in basketball. 27
Right.
points per game, so it's like 27 points per game, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 50% from the field, basically, 36% from three, 88% at the line. He's still been like amazing throughout the season, but literally I've heard zero peeps about Devin Booker all year round, but he's still like playing elite. Like he's just that good of a player. And then Steph Curry, like we mentioned, you had him just missing out on, but Steph Curry is still having it. He's just it's a product of like the rest of his team being complete ass that he's like maybe like being dropped from consideration, but his numbers are still insane. I know he's having like a rough month of March, but just in general, he's been great.
Yeah, Devin Booker, 27 PPG. I'm sorry, bro. You average almost 30. I gotta have you on an All NBA team. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're averaging almost 30 on a team that's terrible, like which the Phoenix Suns aren't, in playoff contention and have real, championship aspirations. Whether they are able to make it far, we'll see how the bracket lines up. But they're a great team that has real postseason aspirations, and he's averaging 27 points per game. You got to make an All NBA team like that. Steph Curry, like you said, he's literally backpacking this team. We've seen spurts from Jonathan Kuminga. Shout out to Pods. Shout out to Klay Thompson for being more accepting of it off the bench role, things of that nature. But I'm sorry, Steph Curry. Steph Curry has been the only model of consistency this entire year. So much so that people are actually calling for Steve Kerr's head at the moment
Right. Yeah. There's
because
a
of the
lot of discussion
treatment
around
of
him.
how they're
Yeah.
utilizing or maybe not utilizing, depending on how you view it, Steph Curry with this final stretch before, we obviously look into the play-in tournament, especially with the Houston Rockets nipping at their heels. Tyrese Halliburton. Let me ask you a question about Tyrese, actually. We never really discussed this on the podcast, but you mentioned that one of the bigger things that's probably hurt Tyrese Halliburton since the injury or since coming back was the injury itself. What are your thoughts on Tyrese Halliburton coming back to a team that no longer has Buddy Hield? And how do you feel about that moving forward when it comes to the Indiana Pacers as they look to go into the postseason? Because actually, I think that Tyrese Halliburton still, yes, there's definitely a little less lift. Yes, there's a little less burst. Yes, we're used to him being more of a second half scorer and things of that nature, right? But there was a spacing element and a synergy element to having Buddy Hield that I felt like really opened up things where now they're
Yeah.
relying on a Benedict Mathurin who's not nearly as high of a clip three-point shooter as Buddy. They're relying on an Andrew Nembhard who, yes, gives you defensive upside in a way that Buddy Hield doesn't give you. But again, the shooting element, the overall offensive output, they're not on par, right? I think that Andrew Nembhard is still just a steady hand as a secondary guard, has proved that he can step up defensively in key moments, but I wouldn't say that he's somebody you would want to close games with if the other guy you're conversating about is Buddy Hield, right? And then I look at the team's construct and I thought the Buddy Hield trade was even more head scratching when they Pascal Siakam because it almost seemed like having Buddy Hield on the team would be even more impactful with a
Right.
guy like
Yeah.
Pascal Siakam, who one of the best transition players in the NBA, as you know, one of the best
Yeah.
finishers around the basket as a big man off the bounce that we have in the league, one of the best guys that can kick out 2 3-point shooters, and in Toronto did not have nearly as much experience with it. But when he did play against other knockdown shooters, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, was
Very
effective
good.
in
Yeah.
those effective operating in that style of offense. And by getting rid of Buddy Hield, it's almost like you upgraded in this one position significantly to help what looks like a forward thinking move in terms of like, your current situation. And then you took like a step back by almost counteracting that move with a move that makes you worse now when your initial move was meant to make you better now. So how do you
Yeah.
feel about Tyrese coming into that situation and then like Indiana in general? Because I think that's what is really important. I think to me, that's the most important part about Tyrese Halliburton's season is really the transition between what his team looked like with Buddy and without Buddy.
You have to remember that Buddy Hield was with them in Sacramento as well. He was like his running mate
Yes.
basically his entire career. He was like the one staple in Tyrese Halliburton since the beginning of his career.
Hmm.
I thought when we talked about the trade at the trade deadline, Buddy Hield was traded because the Pacers didn't want to pay him, and I think at that moment they were like, you know what, Bennedict Mathurin might not be as great of a 3-point shooter, but he can kind of play that role. The issue what happened there was that Bennedict Mathurin a week or two later injured for the season.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that threw off everything. They tried to make amends by making a trade for Doug McDermott, and clearly that has not worked out for the Indiana Pacers.
There's
So
no
when
such thing as a budget buddy TV.
yeah, it is. There's no such thing. So
Like that's what that is.
yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, I mean, like, was it even worth the trade? Yes, you were going to lose Buddy Hield for nothing, like, but was it worth kind of messing with the chemistry, messing with what the flow of the team had? Yeah, sure, you wanted Ben Mathurin to kind of get those like starting reps, but if you weren't going to pay him anyway, you might as well just let him walk and maybe have Bennedict Mathurin take over next year. But that kind of like ruined the whole flow. And now with Bennedict Mathurin's injury, their shooting guard depth became, you know what, pretty solid. You have two knockdown shooters, you have two like pretty solid scorers, to literally like you have nothing there now. So I think like that trade in hindsight was very brutal to the Pacers season, and maybe it's going to show its ugly head in the playoffs. But yeah, no, that definitely kind of messed with Tyrese, just because if there's like they did a good job of keeping him around, even though Buddy was like complaining about his role a lot in Indiana. Let's be honest, he complains about his role everywhere. Buddy Hield, by the way, but he was there with Tyrese the whole time. Like they've created this sort of synergy. Tyrese talked about it on different podcasts that him and Buddy just know exactly where they're gonna be at every moment. So losing that is definitely like a culture shock, especially because like he was there with you like, kind of your entire career. So I guess that alongside the injury, that definitely like hurt Tyrese Halliburton's like production post injury.
Yeah, I just wonder how that's going to play out in the postseason. I feel like obviously you don't have the foresight to know that Bennedict Mathurin is going to go down not even that much longer after the trade deadline. But I feel like if you made the forward thinking move of looking at Pascal Siakam, mind you, pending free agent who you have to pay as well. So it's a similar decision, and you were okay with understanding that you would have to pursue Pascal Siakam and pay him in order to retain him, right? Which also does not guarantee anything, similar to Buddy Hield. So, excuse me, in a weird way, you kind of went out on a gamble both times, and only one felt like it made sense. Going out on the gamble of going to acquire Pascal Siakam, very enjoyable move. We were very high on the idea of them making this move prior to them even putting the trade out there. Now, on the opposite end of it, I think them gambling on, oh, we can live without Buddy was malpractice. And I think that that's one of those things where at bare minimum, if you're playing in terms of making a Pascal Siakam trade, for example, if you're playing to make a real push to the postseason this year, then play it out. And if you can't play Buddy, you're going to lose him anyway. Right? And you looked at the Pascal Siakam situation similarly, of course, with hopes that he would end up resigning because, you know, you can legitimately pay him, wine and dine him as a former all-star player next to a Tyrese Halliburton, all those great things, right? But nonetheless, you were willing to bite the bullet with one, but not with the other. But you can make an argument that the synergy between Buddy Hield is almost as important as the comparable play style that Pascal Siakam brings to the table, being able to play next to Tyrese Halliburton too. Like there's a certain aspect where the synergy of all three of them would have made this team insane, because now you have Tyrese Halliburton with a knockdown 3-point shooter and a legitimate outlet guy. You have Tyrese Halliburton next to another, not necessarily like, you know, offensive creator, but another shot generator, another high volume shot chucker, so to speak, right? Like a Malik Monk, for example, but not nearly as great off the dribble. But you still have another guy who can put the ball in the air at a consistent rate, and he's going to do it, you know, 10, 11 times a game, while also having a Pascal Siakam who can put the ball on the floor, who can make good decisions, things of that nature. Like there was a synergy that they could have created, and they took one of the pieces out before it ever got to really formulate. And I think it was just because of the fact that, like, I think they let money matter too much in one situation as opposed to the other. And I'm not going to say they're going to regret it, because of course, They were going to lose Buddy anyway, it sounded like.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're going to notice Buddy's absence in the postseason.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to give him away, and yes, you did, again, you tried to replace him with Doug McDermott, that does not work out. But for 2 second-round picks, and like for a chance for making like a decent playoff run, I don't think that was worth it. I say just like you should, at this point, you should have just let it ride out. And even if like you wanted Bennedict Mathurin to kind of get the touches in the starting lineup, probably would have been better off just like keeping it around. So yeah, stuff for Tyrese Halliburton. But moving back to the All NBA teams, I'm gonna throw it back to you. You had Rudy Gobert, you had Damian Lillard. Why those over the two Lakers?
Well, TV, we had this conversation when we kind of were talking about like stuff a while back when we were first kind of wrapping our heads around awards. And obviously this will come up next week, so I'm not going to go too in depth number wise and stuff like that. But I don't think you can win a DPOY and not be on an All NBA team. Like I just don't.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Like
okay.
that's just my logic. Is I don't think that you can be the best defender, the anchoring defensive menace in the paint for a Minnesota Timberwolves team that is the best team defensively, statistically, and just watch the games.
Yeah.
And you're a real DPOY candidate and you don't make an All NBA team. Like, I just don't think it's realistic. Like, me personally, I don't think that it's realistic that you can win a DPOY and still not be considered one of the top 15 players in the league for that year, at least in terms of what your productivity is. Yes, it's not. I made a joke about Devin Booker earlier. Yes, it's not 27 PPG, but it is your team is going to be in ball games almost every night because this anchoring defender right here is going to make sure that the paint is secure, that you are able to be as aggressive as possible on the outside, and you cover for the misgivings of players like Karl Anthony Towns and Naz Reid defensively on that side of the ball. Like, I think that's important. And then Dame Lillard, one of the best players in the clutch this year. The Milwaukee Bucks are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Has really picked the game up coming off the All-Star break. That was one of the most important things. Yeah. The synergy between him and Giannis is still not necessarily what we thought it was going to be when the trade first happened.
It's getting there.
Getting there, and it's getting there at the right time. Obviously, they're still kind of trying to wear off some of the rust of the old Adrian Griffin regime, so to speak. In terms of still kind of just making up for lost time in terms of some of their productivity, is still trying to figure a handful full of things out before they go to the postseason. And like I said, I mean, he's definitely been one of the better guards in the NBA. There was a point where I think it was him and Donovan Mitchell were going tit for tat in terms of who really should have been like that starting guard in the Eastern Conference All-Star game next to Tyrese Halliburton at the time. When we had that conversation, I think it was Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, and Dame Lillard were the three names that came up, but I think Tyrese Maxey's name was thrown in, considering his production at the time. And Dame Lillard has only picked up his game since then, personally, or at least, since the All-Star break. So since then.
That's interesting, mostly because I'm again Rudy Gobert. He was like in my close list, and I guess like if I really want a bit deeper, maybe Dame was right there as well. But to have both of them not even having one Laker on your team, even like, especially because Anthony Davis is like, for me this year, he's finally healthy and he's like a top 2 defensive player of the year candidate. Plus he's still, he's playing 67 games, 25 and 12 on, sure his 3-point shot isn't there, but 56% from the field, 81% from the free throw line. Still like 3.6 stocks per game. I think that Anthony Davis, like when he's on the court, we've been saying he's like one of the like a borderline, if not a top 10 player in the league. I feel like he's showing that. Again, the Lakers are 9th, but I still think like he's like all NBA caliber. And then LeBron James, I think when it comes down to it, I think we all understand that he might just, even if it's not on our team, he's probably going to be a lock for all NBA because it's freaking LeBron James.
Yeah, but, fair.
Yeah, but still, even if you take away that aspect of it, 25, 8-7. Played 62 games this year. He still has shown that he's a top 10 NBA player. And although, like, I feel like it's not their fault that this season's been wrong, it's more because of Darvin Ham is just so indecisive with everything that they haven't really been able to settle on a true game plan, even though they're finally figuring out D'Angelo Russell is like peaking at the right time. But I feel like these two guys are like still one of the best duos in the league and provide like more across the board than potentially a Damian Lillard. And then again, Rudy Gobert is right there. He was maybe like it was between him and Anthony Davis, but I took a little bit of the offensive ed to Anthony Davis to put him over Rudy Gobert.
I mean, I'm not necessarily mad at Liz. I can also just admit that I left them off partially because I feel like there is a narrative inclusion for them already. So I think on a national media standpoint, they are probably going to be included. The production is there despite the fact that the success does not match the production. I think a lot of people will make the similar arguments that you made for Anthony Davis. I would say actually personally here, of the two Lakers that deserve to make the All-NBA team, I would only feel comfortable knocking one of my two players down in favor of Anthony Davis.
It would be Anthony Davis.
I don't think I would. I don't. Yeah.
If I had to choose between one, it would be Anthony Davis.
If I had to choose between one, it would be Anthony Davis personally to make my final five. And I think the player that might fall off would actually be Damian Lillard in that sense.
Okay, fair.
Just because I think the two-way aspects for Anthony Davis would play more into his favor. I cannot disrespect the Rudy Gobert, who's been the best defensive player on the best defensive team this year. I just can't. I'm just not going to do it. And I think you can make an argument maybe that Anthony Davis overlaps with Rudy Gobert, and then you just say the offensive productivity from Anthony Davis outweighs him. So then that would be the easy trade-off. I understand that, and I wouldn't say that there is anything necessarily wrong with that argument. I would just also say that clearly, despite the fact that he is a top-level defensive player, the impact on team success now is dictated. And Rudy Gobert's effectiveness as a top-level defensive player has been a key part to why Minnesota has been good and why they've been able to remain consistent throughout the year. Even in their most recent losses that they've had as they've been trying to maintain this battle against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets for the top seed, the only games they lost were games that Rudy didn't play. More specifically. So
exactly,
that goes to show you how influential his defensive presence is on that team. Pair that with the fact that they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. With or without Karl Anthony Towns is also an important note to throw in there. Shows the level of impact that Rudy Gobert has on that side of the ball and how it opens up a lot of things for their other players. Like I said, if there was any player to get swapped out, it would probably be AD for Dame Lillard. There's nothing against LeBron James. I feel stupid even having to explain that because, like, obviously, like, the dude's doing what he always does, right? Yeah, he's doing what he always does. But I think the most important thing is, I mean, another aspect of it is, okay, once you get to All-NBA third team, I'm looking at who are the most productive players playing at a high level on teams that we can see making postseason runs, that we can see playing well in the postseason. And when you talk about the two Lakers guys, these are two guys that may not, keyword is may not, because I'm not just penciling them out, but these are two guys that we may not see even play in the postseason, regardless of the fact that they've been as productive as we're able to praise them for right now. Everybody else on this list, not a single player that we've named on this All-NBA team is going to miss the postseason. Not a single one.
Except for maybe
except for Stephen Curry. Yeah, but that's a completely separate backpacking to me personally.
Honestly,
that's a lot different. And you have to look at what the Warriors have gone throughout the season. Klay Thompson has been moved to the bench. Draymond Green, we don't even need to get into that. The dude has a WWE mixtape of this season only. Yeah. Right? The Jonathan Kuminga stuff. Now Steve Kerr. Didn't they lose their GM before the year even started?
Oh, Bob Myers, he stepped down. Yeah, he stepped down before the season started.
Like, there are a lot of other overall narratives that contribute to the Golden State Warriors' very disturbing season this year.
Yeah.
But again, Steph Curry has been the only thing breathing for this team throughout the entirety of the year. And we've understood from start to finish that if this guy missed any kind of real time, it was going to cost him a playoff spot. So that's a completely different argument to me. The Lakers, on the other hand, their two main guys have been on the floor
most of the
night in
series.
and night out. Yeah, like you said, have not missed many games at all. Yes, cool. I understand. Jared Vanderbilt has missed time. Rui Hachimura has missed time. Cam Reddish has missed
Yeah.
time. Gabe Vincent is looking like the worst offseason pickup ever now after looking like one of the
Right.
better offseason acquisitions. He's barely played for the team, right? They went out and got Spencer Dinwiddie. He's been solid for them, but, still kind of integrating him into the offense. D'Lo basically played to keep his job because the buddy was on definitely one of the main guys on the trading block. He was one of the most discussed names around the trade deadline and played himself off of the trading block. But other than that, I mean, sure, their team has not necessarily been as productive as you would want, but we always give them the benefit of the doubt that as long as they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they're a Western Conference record. Well, they've had LeBron James and Anthony Davis the entire season pretty much, and there's not too much Western Conference wrecking taking place.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like out of all these guys on the list, like, there's a chance KD misses the playoffs. There's a chance that Luka misses the playoffs. They're both still in play-in standings. But when it comes to it, I feel like people who are most of the threat are those two guys, Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Because if you do like a in a one-off playoff in a play-in matchup between the Lakers and against either the Suns or the Mavericks, you probably are choosing like those other two teams ahead of the Lakers due to just like overall roster construction. So they definitely have maybe a better chance of making the playoffs than the Lakers. It's just that, like, I guess for me, they're still kind of like right there. They have a chance to be right there. It's just, and those guys have been healthy all year. The thing is, like, unlike the Warriors have multiple problems, their problem has been one all year, and that's freaking Darvin Ham. So like, it's
fair, good point.
yeah.
Good point.
So like, I guess like that's the only issue. But yeah, no, you can go either way. I love to shout out to Rudy Gobert. Like, again, he was so close to making my team, but that just show I honestly pick LeBron there more like for like the overall respect pick, and he's probably gonna make it anyway. But I think that these two teams are good, like all good all NBA teams all around. I guess before we move on to the next topic, are there some guys that maybe you were thinking of that you want to shout out here who didn't make your All NBA teams?
I'm not gonna lie to you. When you throw out the 65 game threshold thing, it got a little difficult for me to really kind of like go down the list. I mean, okay, we just go down the Eastern Conference and kind of point out guys. I think that Bam Adebayo, for example, is a guy that I think in terms of overall productivity would have been a real consideration for this list. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's having a games played issue in terms of this list.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably make it, but again, it's hard to put him have an argument for him over the guys that we talked about.
I think people are going to push for him over DeMontis. That's a completely separate conversation. We're not going to get too much into it.
We're not disrespecting this man twice, please. We're not.
Yeah, but I feel like people are going to make a push for him. If it was him or some DeMontis, there's that. I think Paolo Banchero has been really solid all year. Tyrese Maxey, I think, does have to have some kind of conversation in this one because considering the fact that like he's just been Mr. Consistent for them.
Zion
leads the league. Zion is one of those interesting ones because TV people do not know this. You actually don't even know this, but Zion at one point was actually, prior to this most recent stretch by the Pelicans, was actually my third player set up for our most disappointing team.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't necessarily know if that's a guy that I can put on my All-NBA team, considering it's almost a tale of two seasons for him right now.
Yeah.
PG is another one that I think could normally have a really strong case. De'Aaron Fox, obviously, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. For
De'Aaron Fox, obviously. And then I think the last person is Alperen Sengun. Well, I don't want to say last person. Yeah, I was gonna say, but Alperen Sengun, and then I would say on a chance Wemby. But like, Alperen Sengun is my last, like, I guess more realistic pick for All NBA.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, like, the 65 game threshold has hurt a lot of people. A la Donovan Mitchell, Julius Randle, of course. I mean, he's been injured most of the year, so he probably wouldn't have made it anyway. Joel Embiid has been missed out because of the amount of time he's missed. So
Alperen can still make it, though. Alperen can still make it. He's not going to cross the 65 game threshold, but there's a back channel part of it where if you played at least 80% of the games played at the time of the season-ending injury, then you still can be in consideration. So Alperen could still potentially make it just based off the fact that he never really missed time outside of this.
Yeah, no, I mean eligibility he's probably still there, but again, I don't think you would put him in the conversation again over a LeBron, a Damian Lillard,
Good
Anthony
point.
Davis, yeah, even a Rudy Gobert. But yeah, shout out to all those guys. They definitely deserve some love. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think. All about our all NBA teams. Our first two were the same, but we had some good discussion over there at the third one. Let us know if there's some guys we were missing, some guys that maybe you thought that we gave too much praise to, all that good stuff. Let us know down below. Jay, it is time to move on to the next topic, and it is going to be the NBA draft. And we have been continuing on the series starting in the year 2000, and now we are in the year 2009. We're doing the 2009 NBA draft. And Jay, I was looking at the list. There were some big ballers over here. How do you feel about this draft pool that we have?
This is definitely one of our better groups, I would say. We're starting to
Yes.
get into a point where obviously some of these players are still around,
Yeah.
which is huge considering how far back this season still is. Still a lot of notable names, and unfortunately, compared to some of our other drafts, it's not the most like rich second round, but there's definitely some names where
The
if we get in a
first round
pinch,
is
yeah, if you get in a pinch and you got to go to the second round, there's some names to lean on, but this first round is really really strong though.
100%. And you're gonna see a lot of like all timers, some like all NBA level, borderline Hall of Fame players on this list as well. So you know how these
Yeah.
drafts go. Jay gets the first pick, I get the next two, and we run it serpentine style. Jay, I have a feeling who your first pick is gonna be, but you could surprise me.
Now I'm not gonna surprise you. I'm gonna go with Stephen Curry with the number one overall pick. But don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, you having back to back picks. This is one of those drafts where man having two back to back to kick it off. You are in a strong position here.
I do, and I already knew you were gonna go Steph Curry. I mean, it's pretty obvious you're gonna go Steph Curry, but
Right.
these two guys I have here, you can't go wrong with either of them. Of course, James Harden comes off the board to me with the first pick. But Jay, we're gonna go for my second pick, the ultimate hit your free throws NBA All Star, the guy who is probably the most beloved by both of us, maybe besides Shea Alexander, but the guy who has probably like the strongest place in our hearts for both of our teams. Of course, I'm gonna go with DeMar DeRozan over there at my second pick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with those two. Gotta hit up the Cali boys.
Come on, man. That's literally spoiler here, but that DeMar DeRozan is actually going to be the new logo for Routine Jumper because it's just like first of all, Routine Jumper, most consistent mid-range shooter of
Yeah,
all time. It feels
yeah.
like at this rate, but also just like you said beforehand, he's just a model of consistency, whether it's my individual fandom with the Bulls, me and TV here on the podcast. It just seemed like the perfect guy overall to represent the brand nonetheless. But
Yeah.
yeah, it seemed like if DeMar DeRozan didn't come off the board within the first three picks, somebody missed them.
Somebody.
Somebody missed
I
them.
mean, one of the best rappers of all time, and then freaking like a Bulls staple over the last couple of years. So, show love to DeMar DeRozan. We love the guy.
Yeah, man. We're gonna keep it in Cali, but we're gonna go to college here, and I actually am gonna put the most ideal secondary guy next to Steph Curry. Let me get Drew Holiday at the
Okay.
two. Perfect,
Love.
perfect
Perfect.
perimeter defender, knock down threes, all that great stuff like that. And then
We
this
are.
is gonna be odd depending on when I say it, but give me Blake Griffin, but I
No.
want Detroit Blake Griffin.
Oh, so the one that could shoot threes and freaking pass the ball like no other.
I think the Detroit Griffin was probably the most actualized version of that player. Like I think that was actually the best version of Blake Griffin that we ever got to see. I think that ESPN loved Clippers
Of course.
version,
Of course.
highlight machine. But in terms of overall productivity and like a player that you could see real upside from long term, I want Pistons Blake Griffin actually. But nonetheless, Blake Griffin is my third pick.
Yeah, no, I feel we're gonna go with Blake Griffin. Either version. I mean, the Clippers won. I mean, one time he finished like fourth at MVP voting, but also
Yeah.
that 1 year in Detroit. Yes, he wasn't dunking the ball like he was with the Clippers. He didn't have the athletic ability, but he had a
Mhm.
3-point shot. He had the playmaking ability, and he still had the scoring output. So yeah, that any sort of Blake Griffin between him or the Clipper one, you got good. And of course, shout out to Drew Holiday, one of the most consistent guys over the last decade or so. All right, so what's tough about this draft is that this is very guard heavy.
True.
Very, very guard heavy. So the fact you took Blake Griffin makes it really tough for the big man position going forward. So we might have to go pretty small in this draft. So I'm gonna continue on. I'm gonna go with someone. There's definitely some choices here, and I don't want too much overlapping, but I think this could still work. Give me with my next pick. This is a throwback right here, by the way. Ty Lawson.
That's a good one. That's a good
Lawson.
one.
Denver Nuggets Ty Lawson was never an all-star, but was like one of those guys who was always like a borderline all-star, kind of like Jameer Nelson, but I think like was a bit more productive in his time with the Denver Nuggets. One of the best passers back in his day. Could pick a pocket here and there. I'm gonna go with Ty Lawson. Of course, he had his little escapade in China and got freaking kicked out of the Chinese basketball league. But nonetheless, he still had a decent career in the NBA. I'm gonna go with Ty Lawson over there. And then for my next one, there's still some good players on the board, but I do want to get someone who can give me a little bit of everything. And I'm just checking to see if there's anyone in the second round I would have over this guy. Probably not. Do I? Or, I just saw another name that potentially could do it. But I still think I'm going to go. No, I just saw another guy that I said now I'm choosing between the two. You know what? I'm going to go with, for spacing purposes, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone pretty obvious. I'm going to go with this guy. Give me, like, Atlanta Hawks version of DeMar Carroll. Like, I think, like, as a 3/4 position type guy, I think I'm going to have him over there on the wing alongside DeMar DeRozan. So I'm going to end up with DeMar Carroll at a kind of like a wing/4 position.
That worked out perfectly. Thank you so much, TV. Yeah. I am going to grab UNC brethren in the second round. Let me get Danny Green.
I had a feeling you're going to go Danny Green.
To run that 3 for me. And I think I understand what you're saying, though, in terms of like going big, because or going small, because going big is looking very, very much dicey.
Yeah. There's still some like solid guards here and they're probably not gonna get drafted, but there's still some like solid guys here.
There are definitely some solid guys. I just don't know how much smaller I want to get to this. And actually, I'm pretty decent on size. Actually, Drew Holiday, Danny Green, and Blake Griffin. So I guess in a weird way, you could.
Yeah, you could get another guard. No, not to be honest.
Bump it. Let's owe to my boy. Let's get another Cali participant. Let me get Tyreke Evans, and I'll put him at the 2, and Drew Holiday can play 3.
When you went with the switcher on, I was not expecting Tyreke Evans. That was the guy I was shooting between him and DeMar Carroll. Between those two.
Really? Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, Tyreke was one of my favorite players back in Sacramento. Obviously, that rookie year is like a standalone year for the most part, but his overall tools were like really good back then. And I think it's weird. I think actually you can make an argument that Tyreke Evans will be better at point guard on this team, and then Steph Curry could play 2 guard because take Tyreke Evans' best season or best seasons in general have always been playing at the point guard position. Specifically, that rookie year stands out the most. When they tried to turn him into a 2 guard, that's when things started to really open up for him in the wrong ways. So actually, I'm going to move Tyreke Evans to the 1 and put Steph at the 2. Drew Holiday will play my 3, but in this draft specifically, that's actually still one of the bigger wing players.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so no, that's pretty good. I was not expecting you to carry Tyreke Evans. When you went with the swerve, I thought you were gonna go with one of your own with the final pick, and I feel like I need to go with him.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to go with him just because he's the only other like really viable big left for me. So I need someone to guard Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
So with my final pick, I gotta take Mr. Chicago Bull away from you.
Mr. Tom Thibodeau 10 day. Mr. Tom Thibodeau 10 day.
For sure. I am going to be taking Taj Gibson as my final pick. Just the ultimate, the guy you want on your team. He's going to play hard. He had, this, Jay. He has a money mid-range jumper back in his day.
True.
So I'm gonna go with Taj Gibson. At least have some sort of size to deal with Blake Griffin. And I feel bad for taking your boy, but I needed some big help.
Oh,
So
understandable.
Jay, 2009 draft is done. Who do you have as your lineup from this draft class?
So my starting five after kind of finagling stuff around towards the back nine of the draft is Tyreek Evans at the one, Stephen Curry at the two, Drew Holiday at the three, Danny Green at the four, and then Blake Griffin at the five.
That's a good lineup. Very good lineup. For myself, I'm gonna be having Ty Lawson run the one, James Harden at the two, DeMar Carroll at the three. I guess I'm gonna put DeMar DeRozan at the four. I mean, he's been playing the four for you a lot during his Chicago Bulls tenure, so I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
so he's kind of used to running the four, and then I'm gonna have Taj Gibson running the five. How do you feel about your team?
I mean, I feel pretty solid. I also feel like there's a couple of guys that definitely could have been discussed across the board. Ricky Rubio could have definitely been a
For
good fit
sure.
on my team as a facilitator. Brandon Jennings could have been good for either one of us as a high volume scorer. Jeff Teague, Eric Maynard, Darren Collison, all guys that could just be steady hands. They all kind of fall into the Ty Lawson camp. So I think you just picked the most interesting of the
Yeah.
group. And I'm glad you picked Ty Lawson because I think outside of like, Jeff Teague, especially more notable now today with the podcast.
Yeah.
Darren Collison, still not too far removed from his last NBA tenure. Eric Maynard's probably like the more forgettable guy within the
Yeah.
group I just listed. So get as much love as maybe he deserves. That old Nuggets team with him, Danilo Gallinari, the Mandible,
Yeah.
who else, man? Andre
Iggy.
Miller was on that team.
Iggy.
Iggy was on that team.
Yeah.
Like that was just a completely different Randy Foy, if you remember,
Randy
was
Foy
on that team.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So like that Denver Nuggets team was one of the more interesting groups. Shout out to them. Not too much in the second round. Pat Bev is here. If I'm not mistaken, Patty Mills was like late second round.
This is a tough
kind
second
of
round to
thing.
choose from. Yeah, no, it's a tough second round to choose from.
Yeah. Like you said, though, draft was really guard heavy. So for two small teams, I think the best thing that could have happened was I didn't get DeMar DeRozan, which obviously, is a real equalizer amongst us two. But I easily got the best big of the entire draft with Blake Griffin. And I mean, that, you can make an argument on whether or not you want to debate Steph Curry versus James Harden at their best. But I think in terms of like, best big or whatever, obviously Blake Griffin definitely stands at the top of that list, even with his injury-riddled career. So
yeah, I mean, if we're getting the prime versions of each, then of course, if you take Prime Blake, then you're definitely winning. One of the probably a top 10 player back in his day. So yeah, these are our two teams. I like my team as well. Of course, I'm just glad I got DeMar DeRozan. He's my favorite player of all time. So I got to make sure I had him on my team. So yeah, like both of our teams, let us know down below who has the winning team between the two of us. Actually, one of our viewers suggested to me that maybe I might do this as a video on TikTok, but if we run both our teams in a 7-game series, who ends up losing might have to do another Jelly Bean. We were looking for more Jelly Bean stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I mean, how would you would want to do it like sim style or like
sim
we would have to play it out?
No, we could sim style it and see like who ends up coming out on top. We'll just get the prime version of each guy and do like 48 minutes, like all of them playing 48 minutes or whatever.
Interesting. I mean, we have more than enough drafts for it. So I
mean, we could do. I mean, we might start off with this draft, so let us know. So I might do a little thing. So be on the lookout for that. Maybe we've been looking for ways to get rid of these jelly beans. Maybe this is like one of the ways to do it. So be on the lookout for that. But we're gonna move on to the final segment of the draft, and then of course is the NBA quiz. And at this point, I mean, we've gone through all the cards and everything. And usually with this type of draft, a very easy quiz to do is say, let's name the top 10 players with the most All NBA appearances. Not on this podcast, we're not. Jay, I'm gonna need you to name me the top 5 players who have the most All NBA second team appearances and the top 5 guys who have the most All NBA third team appearances since 1980. So we're gonna start with the All NBA second team. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no repeats on either list. It's very interesting. We're not looking at All NBA first teamers. Nothing. The people who have the most All NBA second team selections and the top 5 players with the most All NBA third team selections. So you might not have to look at the very best at their time, but maybe like the guys just slightly under. So We're gonna
This
start
is
off with
since 1980. You said though.
it's 1980. So you got to look back. So these is like, just because I was looking at the list and a lot of the guys you're probably not like, shout out to Hal Greer, shout out to like a bunch of those other 60s guys, but I didn't want you to like to kind of like reach that deep into the bag. So I'm gonna go 1980s so you know all of these guys. So let's start off with the All NBA second team. Think of guys that can who have the most appearances at All NBA second team.
Hmm.
I'll tell you that there are 4 guys that are 80/90s, but you know all of them, and then there's one guy post 2000.
Wow. Second team is crazy. I'm trying to think.
Yes.
The most. Wow.
The most second. I mean, to be fair, people who are first team usually stay first team for the longest time.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm like, well, who are the people that like made second team all the time? Or like, wow, that's an interesting one.
I mean, these are. I will say, all of these guys basically on this list are still probably going to be Hall of Famers, probably for both like the second team and the third team, but they're all like Hall of Fame like worthy players.
Damn. Oh my God, this might be the first like quiz I'm like really stumped on. Let's think about players who were like just considered like second best at their position. Because back obviously up until now, everything was position based. So it's just who was coming second all the time. Are all of them like from the like 80s and 90s, or like are some of them current, or like what? Like just give me
one
like
guy. I mean, they're all retired, but there's like one post 2000s guy, and he retired probably in the last like 7 years or like 7 or 8 years.
Oh, the last 7 or 8. Damn, I was gonna say David Robinson is one of them.
Oh, yeah, no, he's one of them.
Okay, good. I guess because that's still early 90s, right?
Never mind. I messed up. He's not on this list. He's not on this list.
Oh, he's not? Okay, I was gonna say because I don't think he counted. Damn, what the heck?
One guy from like one guy post 2000, and then the rest are like 80s, 90s. Mostly played in the 80s and 90s.
What's that like? Maybe like Isaiah Thomas?
Not Isaiah Thomas, but think like guys like who were non-Magic Johnson, who were like the best point guards of that time, are not Magic.
Wow, I'm not gonna lie. 80s, 90s is not hitting hard right now.
I mean, this guy put up the guy who has the most All NBA second team appearances. Put up like it's like all time in like one category, but you know, people are saying that the stats people kind of maybe kind of like skewed the numbers in his favor.
What the heck? Damn, sorry. I'm like you've never stumped me like this before, so I'm just processing it right now.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's two guys. There's like 2 guys with like 6 All NBA second team appearances, and they both play in the same era. Yeah, they both play in the same era. Okay, I'll give you some hints with some of these guys. The one of the guys with 6 All NBA second team appearances, he was always great at not scoring, but always like was like the leader of an offense, but he didn't score. He never like scored that much, but he'll always like be the leader of an offense, like one of the best of his time.
Damn, I feel like I know who you're talking about. For some reason, his name's not clicking.
Definitely, he has 2 basically like unbreakable records in terms of like passing the ball. Like he's like no one's gonna reach it just because of the amount he's had. Like he's just like no one's gonna reach the amount of assists.
Oh yeah, wait a minute. Let me. Okay, I'm gonna look up a complete. I'm gonna look up like a random stat. It's because I know his name, and for some reason it's not. It wasn't clicking. My fault. It's John Stockton. I don't know why I couldn't his name wasn't clicking for me for some reason. I apologize. I literally knew who you were talking about. For some reason I could not piece it together. Okay, now I'm gonna try to. Okay, that was just the one thing I need to look up to kind of get the ball rolling. Okay, so like is Gary Payton on this list?
Not Gary Payton. The rest of these guys are all 4s and 5s.
Wait, what? Oh, fuck.
All I mean, the '90s were filled with like just great centers.
Yeah,
So
good
like,
point.
I mean, it's not like if they're not number one. There's one center here where you'd be surprised that he's made All NBA second team a lot just because he's one of the best centers of all time. But I guess it's like more like later on in his career why he always made like All NBA second team.
So like, what's this like? Is Charles Barkley on the list?
Charles Barkley is one of the players. He has 5 All NBA second team selections.
Okay, so this is gonna come off as real disrespectful, but I'm just gonna start thinking of a lot of people who just live in second place. So
Yes.
like, so Jesus Christ. Is like Patrick Ewing here?
Tied with John Stockton for 6 All NBA second team appearances.
Wow.
The last two guys, both are champions. One guy, like, you'd assumed he would be like All NBA first team like every single year of his career, but just
Mhm.
near the back end of his career, like he was just not the best center anymore. So, but he was like always like near the top still. Mostly because he played with one of the best players of all time. I mean, he played like one of the best point guards of all time.
Well, you said NBA champion, so it can't be Karl Malone.
Karl Malone is not on this list. I think he just made too many first teams.
Is Moses Malone on the list?
No. Think even like higher on the all-time rankings. Again, you don't expect this guy to make like All-NBA second team this many times. It's just that he like just got older. Even though he made like a lot of All-NBA teams, he still like made a bunch of like second teams.
Are you telling me something like weird, like Kareem's on the list? Or something?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, yeah.
Oh, okay,
5
that's
All-NBA
crazy.
second team.
Yeah, wow, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, I think he's probably on the list too with most All-NBA first team. It's just that again, back end of his career, like there was
Yeah,
Moses Malone around. There was the coming of like Hakeem Olajuwon, so kind of like messed up like his trajectory. But yeah, Kareem is here.
all bigs.
And then the last guy is the post 2000s guy. I wouldn't say you could call him like number 2 just because maybe there have been other 4s that have been better to him at this time. Like he's just unfortunate that he had to live in like the era where like the 4 was like the best position in basketball.
So what? Like, is that like Chris Webber?
Not Chris Webber. Think even higher than that. Like again, an NBA champion, like someone who was like again one of the best at his position of all time. It's just that like he had to play next to like one certain guy, and that's why he could never really get the recognition he deserved.
Dirk.
5
Wow.
second team selections on here as well. The only guy post 2000. Okay, All NBA third team. This one was definitely interesting because now you have to go take a step below. But these again, Hall of Fame level players, and honestly, one of these guys, or maybe 2 of these guys, you would expect that they had like more like second and first team selections than they did. But again, they just played in an era with like too many great bigs. So yeah, there's 3 guys post 2000, 3 guys probably post 2010 mostly that they played, and then 2 guys, 1 guy mostly from the 90s, 1 guy 90s 2000s.
Okay, but this group isn't like all bigs.
Not all bigs. There's like it's 3
okay.
wings and 3 wings, 2 centers.
Is Dame here?
Dame, I think he had 4, but he didn't. 5 is the breakoff point. So no Dame on this list. The 2 centers again, all-time great centers. You wouldn't expect them to be on All NBA third team list. It's just that they just played an era where the center. And remember, there's only 1 center allowed on like All NBA teams back then. So it's just like tough competition for them.
What, like Powell?
No, even like before that, like think of like top 20 players all time.
What the hell? Like,
yeah, top 20 players all time. Like one of the guys here on this list, one of the centers, like made All NBA third team. I think he played it like it wasn't on the team that he was most known for. He was a journeyman near the end of his career, but he picked up like All NBAs like from here and there for some reason, just because of like I guess a respect factor.
For some reason, okay, so it's not Dwight Howard.
No,
it's like Shaq.
Shaq has 4 All NBA third team. I think one of them was with the Suns. One of them was with the Miami Heat. So it was like a weird some stuff at the end. But yeah, Shaq is on this list. The other center, again, one of the best centers of all time, especially he played in the 90s era. It's just too many good centers there, man. Too many good centers.
Dog. I don't think I've ever had.
I think you mentioned him on the other list, but he was wrong for that list.
I think I mentioned him for the other
For
list.
so the All NBA second team list, you mentioned him there, but he actually fits in this category.
Oh, what was that? David Robinson?
David Robinson,
Oh,
4 All
okay.
NBA third teams. That's I mean
Whoa.
that's what happens when he has to play with Hakeem and Patrick Ewing his entire career. So yeah,
True.
he's on this list. The rest of the guys post 2010s. Just think of some like really good wings from that from this era.
Their wings.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. And this is from. You said this is post 2010.
Yeah. Well, these guys played mostly post 2010. I guess one guy's like 2000s, 2010s, like both, but like the other two guys, the other two guys for sure just played like 2010s, and like they're still playing now.
They're still playing now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Dang. I don't know about playing now, but you said top wings is like it's like Mello here or somebody like that.
Melo is one of the guys on the list. He has 4 All NBA third team
Okay.
selections.
Cool.
The
That's
other
like
two, the other two
right.
guys are still playing. One of them has actually the most All NBA third team selections. Um, both guys still playing. Both guys teams still vying for a championship. But
And this isn't this is Dame Lillard, no? Or no?
this is not no Dame. I think has 3
Oh,
for
okay.
here too.
Still playing though.
Both are
Interesting.
wings. Both are still wings. Yeah, both are wings.
PG?
PG has the most All NBA third team appearances all time with 5. So there's
Wow.
one more guy with 4, and Jay he hits close to home for you.
Oh Lord. Is it Derrick Rose?
Not Derrick Rose.
Okay.
Just go a bit further. Just a bit further down.
Is it our dog DeMar DeRozan?
No, no, go back. No, go a bit back. So like in between, like the Derrick
Okay.
Rose.
Oh, in between. Oh God, in between eras is nasty.
I mean, he kind of overlapped with the Derrick Rose era, but still, I think like he kind of has his own like little era there for you guys.
Oh, you said he overlapped with Derrick Rose?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not Zach. Cool.
No.
Answer that question.
I mean, surprisingly,
Overlapped with him.
surprised he got this many All NBA third team selections, knowing how little he cares.
What?
I feel like this is like the perfect position for this guy because he just doesn't care, and then like when it comes to the postseason, that's when he's like, oh, maybe he's like more than an
No.
all.
Oh wow. Wait a minute. Okay, Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler, 4 All NBA third team
Wow. You
selections.
know what? He does like low key like not. I mean, the All NBA selections really could mean like squat to him, and then you do realize that like he's always in these conversations, but especially lately, he's always like this 65 game threshold kills dudes like him like now moving
Right.
forward. So I guess that's part of the reason why I like slipped is like the last couple of years Jimmy Butler being an all NBA caliber player has never been a question in terms of talent, but stuff like games played now I'm just sitting there like, man, I don't even know. So third team is hard.
Yeah,
What the heck?
Jimmy Butler, 4 times All NBA third team. One of the
Sorry,
toughest
listeners,
lists.
that might not have been the greatest radio from my end, but Jesus,
Yeah.
that was a real that one really stumped me.
Yeah, no, I was like, you know what? Some of these guys, I mean, you definitely knew all of them, all the guys that you knew.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just like when you think of All NBA, the fact that you think maybe like a step down from the usual All NBA guys, it definitely makes it tough. But yeah, Jay got through it. Let me know down below what other quizzes you want us to do. But we've reached another end of another great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Jay, what do you have to tell these people before we sign out?
Man, I mean, we say it on every outro for like the last month. The NBA playoffs is right around the corner. We are down to what, like the last 10 to 12 games of the regular season. Teams are shoring up. The Western Conference #1 overall seed, ironically, still up for grabs. The final spots in the Western Conference play-in tournament, still up for grabs. The Eastern Conference seems to be where it is. For everybody that must have forgotten, let me let y'all know that one of our bold takes at the beginning of the year, mine specifically, was that my Chicago Bulls would make the playoffs over TV's Toronto Raptors. We are still in play to do that.
Hey, we have not been officially eliminated, but we might as well be. We're like 11th straight loss right now.
10 to 12 games left, man. We are in full stride. And obviously, once the postseason starts, it'll be shorter episodes, more content, I guess is the way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Shorter episodes, more content. But that's when we actually get into like some of the nuances, really get into the weeds, the way we like to do on this podcast, and really, really talk hoops. So as we continue to weed through the storylines, man, just stay tuned. We got some good stuff coming.
100%, and you could follow along through our YouTubes, our podcast networks at Hit Your Free Throws Pod. Show us some sort of sport over there in the YouTube and podcast sphere. Again, if you want to follow along for the daily NBA content, the clips, the power rankings, everything of that sort, just follow Hit Your Free Throws. You can see the vlogs there as well. And yeah, just another great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. This is TV. This is Jay signing out. Peace.